Hey guys, welcome back to Censored Society, and here's our full-length podcast, our first one on the channel, and I am with my wonderful host, Ryan, and my name is Tyler. That was very newscastery. I don't like it, but we're going to roll with it. We'll learn how to do
All
this on the
right.
fly.
Today in the news, we're going to talk about Tyler's videos
Oh boy.
because as soon as you posted the first one, I immediately messaged you and said, "Hey, this is kind of choppy." And your response to me was you started laughing because you just were thinking of what I was going to tell you
Yeah.
in response to your video. And I kind of called you out on that and said, "Don't do that. Call me out right away. If you think something I'm going to have a point to, say it right on the video and we can talk about it." Do you want to bring some of those up? Because
So my thing was in the second video. The first video, that was just me up for 45 hours, exhausted and trying to just talk my way through something, and my ADHD not keeping me on track. Second video, I thought you were gonna throw a little fit about the welfare comments and whatnot that I made again, and me being more direct about getting off the fence on a certain couple topics, like drawing a line in the sand on the unequal representation of extremism in politics today, whereas on the right hand side, the Republican side, you don't have the endorsement or tacit endorsement of the political violence or extremism, like the Groypers and stuff like that on the right wing. They are not representative of the views of the Republican Party, but the mainstream Democrat Party are representative of the views of the extremist left. I kind of thought you were gonna have a problem with that, but apparently I think you don't, because it's really hard to argue against that, considering AOC, the largest voice in the entire Democrat Party, went onto the House floor and has for the last 8 years espoused those exact same beliefs that are engraved on those rounds, and which are being parroted by the extremists on the left. So maybe you don't have a problem with that, but I know you have a problem with the welfare comment that I made. That's for damn
well,
sure.
yeah, I mean, we're always going to have issues on welfare, and that's a fine argument to have on who should be responsible for taking care of our people. I don't think my opinion varies as much as yours as you might think, but it definitely varies enough for me to say, like, hey, the welfare state needs to get checked in, and people should not be depending on our government for lifelong stability.
Yes, yeah. I think my only nuanced difference from you on that is that I think that people that are disabled should be able to depend on that for lifelong security. I don't think that people that are disabled and cannot work should be taken off of it.
Depending on the disability, again, there's different factors on different things and who should be responsible for what, obviously. To a certain point, there are people who are so heavily disabled that there's no way they can't be without the government.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of people who are very temporarily disabled or who kind of ride a disability much longer than they necessarily need to.
I also think the welfare state is going to become more and more inevitable as we continue down this road of automation. More and more people, especially low-skill labor jobs, are going to continue to lose their presence in the workforce, and it's going to get to a point where there's just no place for those people, and we're just going to have to take care of them, to be entirely honest with you.
Mm-hmm. It's a possibility, and it's obviously politics are not stationary. They're continuously moving at all times. You can definitely see with a lot of the right-wing movements, a lot of people are getting much more comfortable with somewhat a use of the welfare state. I'm a good example of that, versus where it was when the Republican Party had originally started. It was no, we should depend on the church. We should allow the states to decide where the welfare of everyone comes from. As opposed to, as we're getting larger and larger as a nation and more as we get closer and closer to less labor intensive jobs through automation, as we get more toward a larger country that depends on less from the church, more from the state, it's definitely going to continue to slowly shift that Overton window.
Yeah, I also kind of think that, not to bridge this into this little bit of my ADHD rabbit hole conversation here thing happening, but it's kind of another thing that I think about with illegal immigration, how it affects labor, wages, and all that stuff in America is we already have such a short supply of those low-skill labor jobs, and then a lot of these people coming from other countries are coming in to take those low-skill labor jobs because they are lowly educated or low skill labor.
I would almost hold back a little bit on the lowly educated part, because we can't actually guarantee a lot of these people are lowly educated. I can guarantee you there's a vast amount who, not every time.
But they're not coming here to take like programming jobs.
Right. Well,
none of them.
Yeah, there's
actually, you know what? I'm gonna go back on that. Mexican people coming here not taking Mexican people coming here not coming to take programming jobs. No illegal immigrant is taking a high school labor job. So I just want to jump in real quick and do a little bit of a voiceover and finish my point, because we didn't get to explore the point that I was making very much in the podcast because it got derailed and Ryan jumped in. And prior to the point that I was making here about illegal immigration, we were talking about welfare and how the welfare state is going to become more necessary as automation and AI consume the low-skilled labor market. And what I was trying to do was tie illegal immigration in there and talk about how it's a compounding issue that we have in this country, because illegal immigrants being smuggled across the southern border end up owing money to the cartels and the coyotes that smuggle them into this country. And they get put into low-skilled labor jobs paid pennies on the dollar, extorted by massive corporations and these coyotes, and local businesses and small businesses too, of course, are also engaging and taking part in this. But regardless, the point remains, these people are being extorted for slave labor, essentially, to pay back the coyotes who brought them in. And that, of course, does two things. It takes a low-skilled labor job that an American would take, and also it drives down the wages for Americans, because why would a business pay you, let's say, $15 an hour to take this position when they can pay an illegal immigrant who comes across the southern border 25 cents an hour to do the same exact job? And because that employer chose an illegal immigrant that they can pay slave labor to instead of an American that they have to pay fairly, that person is now strengthening the welfare state that we are specifically referencing. Because now that American who could not take that low-skilled labor job that they usually are entitled to take, that they should be the first consideration for, they're out now searching for food stamps and housing and Medicaid and all of that stuff that they should have otherwise been able to take care of themselves. So it strengthens our welfare state. So that's what I'm talking about in this part. And it got missed, it got obfuscated, and then the conversation got derailed. So I want to just come in real quick and finish off my point that that's what I was actually referencing here. Many of the people coming across the southern border are not highly educated. And if they are, they're going to be extorted by corporations regardless of their education status too. Even in these sanctuary states and cities, I'm not exactly sure their policies on them coming in and taking those positions, but I know that they are not going to have the same protections as an American citizen. Anyway, that was the whole point that I wanted to make. I just wanted to pop in real quick and say, hey, this is what I was actually trying to illustrate here, and it got derailed. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. I'll get out of here and let you guys get back to it. Okay, thanks, guys. It's like, you know what? I'm right.
It's a take. It's a take.
No, I'm correct.
It's a take.
I am absolutely correct.
Well, if you are, you know what? I'm not even going to say if you are an illegal immigrant. Please comment down below your job.
We'll call ICE.
Where can we find you? Don't do that, please.
Yeah, don't comment on this video.
If you are someone who has come to this country legally, if you're from this country for all I care, and you know someone who's taken a high skilled profession, you don't have to be specific. Yeah. Just say, hey, yeah, I know someone who works in this trade. No state, no location, leave it alone, and just prove Tyler wrong that there are some educated people from third world countries.
Oh yeah, because it's a total condemnation of all people, not just the people taking the list. Okay, I see how you're doing me there.
This kind of drives into the point.
There's a reason why they say who's gonna pick our vegetables and grow our oranges. You know, there's a reason why they say that.
I've made comments to friends about this because they're just like, yeah, how are we going to have California getting their crops? And I'm like, there's this idea that when there's a problem, ingenuity solves it. So you talk about, I'm from the Midwest. We have a bunch of corn. How do we pick the corn? We don't hire a bunch of kids to go. Well, we do at certain places actually, but that's a summer job. But there's also combines. We've invented an entire machine to go through the field, get all the stalks out, get the corn, move on. Why don't we get that in California with their fruits that they provide? Let's put our thinking caps on. Let's break down the design process, and let's get something that can pick it with the farmer and maybe a couple helpers, but not necessarily like, oh, I need to go hire Jose and I'm going to pick a very stereotypical name. Let's hire somebody, anybody in the country.
Well, let's see. That's what I was going to kind of bridge into is like, it's always the Democrats, I'm going to make the stereotypical joke of, the Democrats, but who's going to pick our cotton? And now it's who's going to pick our crops, our fruit, It's like they always turn to slave labor. It's not compassion.
It's the same arguments that the Democrats made in the 1850s during the race with Lincoln and I don't remember who he went.
How about you?
Yeah.
Clean your own fucking
toilet. How about you? Get out there, grab your scrub brush. Go get the pomegranates. Go get the avocados.
Or pay a legal American a proper wage to clean your toilet, and not some slave labor, poor Mexican person coming over here, enslaved by the cartels, being totally taken advantage of, or someone from a third world country totally being taken advantage of, forced into slave labor to repay the cartels that smuggled them in across the border. That's ridiculous that we are engaging in that. That's like, and allowing that, like these sanctuary cities allowing that kind of behavior is unacceptable, and we need a federal crackdown on that, I think, personally.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up real quick where the state was, but did you hear about the protest the Democrats gave against what they thought was an ICE raid on I believe it was a marijuana dispensary? It was some business, and they chased the guys out of the business thinking that it was a deportation crackdown, but in reality it was a labor force trying to protect trafficked kids who were like
I did not hear about this.
Unsupervised. Yeah.
Oh wait, no, the kids of the marijuana plant in Cali. That was California. Wasn't that California?
Yeah.
I did hear about this actually.
And it's funny because what I'm hearing is that no one was reporting the fact that these not only were these not ICE agents, but also they were there to protect the children who were no parents. Like they were just here, trafficked in, obviously illegally. Either way you look at it, you can't legally traffic a kid into the country.
Didn't Gavin Newsom come out and say something about that? Like, I feel like I vaguely remember this controversy now. I feel like Gavin Newsom came out and said something absolutely outrageous about the whole situation.
I didn't hear anything from Newsom. If we can find that post edit, that's fine. Let's get that in here because regardless, that was like...
Ryan asked me to go find the quotes that they existed because I was like, I'm pretty sure he said some stuff that was like totally out of touch with reality around the events that happened at this raid. So I went out and I found them, and I'm going to pop them up on the screen for you right now. And the first one is, agents continue to detain U.S. citizens, insane, and racially profile Americans, ripping families apart and disappearing parents and workers into cruel federal detention centers. This is, first of all, absolutely out of touch with reality. The U.S. citizen thing has to be the Abrego Garcia situation, which we all know he is actually from El Salvador. He's not an American citizen at all. He's an illegal immigrant, and he was a member of MS-13, but you can't even talk about that because most Democrats think that Trump just wrote that on there when he was actually just translating what the tattoos meant in that image. This is totally out of touch with reality, and we have more quotes, so here comes the next one. Here's our second quote from Gavin Newsom. He says, there's a real cost to these inhumane immigration actions on hardworking families and communities, including farm worker communities across America. Now, he's invoking this imagery and this to make you throw out your logic, to trigger your emotion, to make you care about it emotionally rather than pragmatically and logically. What he's saying here is that the real cost to these workers is they can't take these farm worker communities is they cannot take advantage of slave labor anymore. That's what he's really saying here, but he's trying to emotionally charge it. So you think about the families being ripped away from their jobs in America, but that's not what's happening. These are illegal immigrants. This is a farm that was taking part in enslaving children to child labor to repay the coyotes that illegally smuggled them across the border and took them from their parents. Because of these children, I think it was 8 or 10 of them are unaccompanied illegal immigrants into our country, working on a marijuana farm. That is disgusting and wrong on every level. And if you support that, then you are advocating for the exact opposite of what you claim. Now, that's why he was evoking that emotional rhetoric, because he wants you to throw the logic in your brain that goes child labor wrong out the door and endorse this sick practice that was happening, and which is happening all across America, especially in these sanctuary states. He goes on to say, instead of supporting the businesses and workers that drive our economy and way of life, Stephen Miller's tactics evoke chaos, fear, and terror within our communities at every turn. Now imagine if he was saying this about slaves in the 1860s when we fought to free slaves from the South. Because they would say this exact same thing. Those businesses are driving the economy, and you're evoking fear in Americans, you know? Southern Americans are scared. You're coming in with force to take away our slaves. That's exactly what this is. These people are slaves. They're being paid pennies on the dollar, if they're being paid at all. They're being extorted. And here he is fear-mongering, hiding the truth, and tacitly endorsing child slave labor on a marijuana farm in his state. It's wrong. It's disturbing. It's disgusting. Let's go to the next quote. And our final quote here is from Gavin Newsom's own website, and it's actually from before the July raid that found those children on the pot farm, on the weed farm. And I wanted to bring this up because it came up in the research for this topic and for the other quotes, and it's part of the larger problem that I am referencing in this conversation. He says, continued chaotic federal sweeps across California to meet an arbitrary arrest quota are as reckless as they are cruel. That's the most ridiculous thing. Arbitrary arrest quota. How about we are trying to get as many illegals caught and deported as humanly possible? But no. Try and make it seem like it's stupid and pointless to be going out here and catching as many of them as we can and getting them out of our country. Yeah, it's such a waste of our time, and it's totally arbitrary, Gavin Newsom. That makes any sense at all. It's definitely not reckless or cruel to deport criminals and illegals from our country. Then he goes on to say, Donald Trump's chaos is eroding trust, tearing families apart, and undermining the workers and industries that power America's economy. So he's saying that we should not deport illegal immigrants or go and do raids to catch them to deport them because it's, one, eroding trust. How is it eroding trust? Who is it eroding trust with? That's the question you should also be asking. These companies and corporations and businesses that are employing illegal immigrants and paying them slave labor like this should be criminally prosecuted, in my opinion. And that's who he's talking about here. These people that are taking advantage of these poor people coming across the border and being taken advantage of not only by these corporations, but by the coyotes and cartels that are making them be in a situation where they have to be extorted. Then he says they're tearing families apart because they separate parents from children. That's what he's claiming. What the actual reality is they don't know if these kids belong to the people that are being called their parents or not, and they're separated to vet and make sure that's what's actually happening. And then they are deported together. And then he says, undermining the workers and industries that power America's economy. So we should be empowering the companies that are engaging in slave labor, and we should not be removing the slaves from the companies that are enslaving them. That is what Gavin Newsom is saying here. He's just hiding it behind this emotional language. He is endorsing slavery. Straight up, unabashedly. It's disgusting. Gavin Newsom needs to be ousted from California. Please, Californians, don't ever let him hold office again. And if he runs for America's presidency, please, America, can we not let this man get into office? This is evil and disgusting. And honestly, the whole Democratic Party basically endorses this kind of behavior and this kind of language. And that's what I was talking about with the extremism in one of our previous videos, one that I did. The extremism of the left is the face of the Democrat Party, and it's not the face of the Republican Party.
It's funny to see what the far left, sit there and be like, we don't like this, and then they allow it. You know, we don't like child labor, but you know, let's have the Hispanic kids that are undocumented go ahead and pick and process our marijuana for us.
Yeah, it's I call it suicidal empathy or narcissistic empathy, where it's portrayed as this like altruistic thing that you're doing, but in actuality you're doing one of the most despicable things you could do, something you'll never face the consequences of in your protected suburb. Like all these homeless encampments, child slave labor from being trafficked into the country by cartels. Like these people that en masse vote for these kinds of policies will never suffer the consequences of those decisions. It's the people who live in the urban centers, the people that are being extorted trying to come to a better country that get taken advantage by those policies. And it's really disturbing that the left side of the political spectrum get their empathy played on so much to support those things. It really bothers me. And I've had so many conversations with people on the left about this stuff, and you can point these things out to them and they will still support them regardless of the negative real world effects you can see that are reported on. It's like this disconnect in their brain where it's easier. I think it's the same thing where how the media and politicians relegate anybody who disagrees with their mainstream opinion as a Nazi or a fascist. It's just easier to relegate this is good, this is bad in their mind and just move on from it. And the minute you try to challenge that, they just go, nope. I don't want to even think about how this could be bad. Me think good. Me want good thing.
Me want good thing. Don't like bad thing. There's a whole lot of things going on right now that are just real fun about the topic we're going to get into. You had discussed about right-wing extremism versus left-wing extremism, and how the right-wing pictures of extremism is not wholly the picture of the right wing itself versus the left. It is their platform, because we also just in the past week had Google testifying that they were approached by the Biden administration to censor or change the algorithm against right-wing idolatries.
Yes, and remove right-wing accounts. But this is where we're going to probably kind of bridge into that free speech discussion a little bit. I'm not exactly upset with the accounts that got removed. Like, are any of us complaining that Nick Fuentes got removed off of YouTube?
No. Fuentes, I think, was the one that were just like, yeah, cool, thank you.
To the world of service.
That either.
No, yeah.
But there's a lot of other accounts that definitely were like, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to do this. And that's where we're going to get into this. Today, we're going to actually be discussing our First Amendment. We're going to be talking about the freedom of speech, religion, press, and assembly, and the protections that it gives and the protections that it doesn't. Tyler, I want to get your opinions real quick. We can kind of just break it down as we go, but where do you cut off speech?
Incitement to violence. Yeah, anything that is illegal. Incitement to violence is specifically where I think that is, you should not be able to say that. I also think, and it could be coded incitement or tacit incitement where you're not being direct with it. Any of that I think should be punishable by law.
So how do you feel about the whole Kimmel situation?
I don't feel like that was censorship of free speech. I know the FCC head or whatever went on to Benny Johnson's podcast and had made some comments, but it was actually not really him having any influence on it. It was the Sinclair and that other organization, and then also ABC themselves, I think, were involved in preempting his show. And also, he's in the last year of his contract. He's been losing them, like, I think $40 million a year or something like that. And it sounds like
that sounds like the amount from Colbert.
Okay, maybe it was 20 million or something like that. But either way, I think it was more of a business decision, because he brought more controversy when he said that, and it was just outright disrespectful. And his show wasn't ended. He was just temporarily suspended. They said that in the initial announcement. and they just wanted an apology from him, and he's back because he was always going to be back. He was never permanently gone. So I don't think that was a violation of free speech in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that what he said in particular should be maybe punishable by law, but that one treaded on that thin line of, is this incitement? Because he did try to portray the shooter and the situation as a MAGA Republican, having done it just like they did with the Trump assassination. They tried to portray him as a right winger. And it was mostly just in bad taste, but you could make an argument to where he was inciting more violence towards people on the right in a situation where someone on the right was publicly executed, publicly assassinated by the way he was speaking. And you know what? If you made a compelling argument, I might not argue against you on that, because I think it was particularly vile what he went on there and did, personally.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think the comments he made about Kirk alone were just disrespectful. Not at the point at which he had said that it was someone who was on the right's team, MAGA's team, whichever you prefer. We already had the information that no, his parents were right leaning, but he had basically become very left leaning. At some point. And I mean, there's a whole nother discussion you can have about our college system and how that happens. Like,
but there's something else, Ryan, that really bothers me about that whole situation too. And I talked about it in my video a little bit, but I didn't elaborate on the point because I wanted to keep the video kind of shorter and sweeter. But there is this idea that many people in this country and in the world try to parrot, that if your parents or your family lean one way politically, there's no way that you could possibly have a different mindset. Like they tried to portray him that way because of his family, but there's so many people on the left and right, but mostly the left, that completely alienate themselves from their family because they're so vastly different politically. It is intellectually dishonest to try and portray this guy as though he is right-wing just because his family is, when he is clearly an extremist of the opposite ideological end of the spectrum. It is not even a question. It's inscribed on his shell casings, and he's got the Discord messages. He's dating a trans person. Like, he's absolutely, clearly, evidently on that. And when you're saying that information was already out, yeah, that is absolutely what made it the most disturbing thing Jimmy Kimmel did, because the information was there. That was not a lie by omission. That was just an outright lie, misrepresentation of the facts. There's actually another woman, I can't remember her name, but she makes content on not YouTube, but TikTok, where she did the same thing. The facts had already come out, and she came out and said, "Oh, I wasn't a transgender or furry ideological stuff inscribed on the rounds. It was just the manufacturer's initials, TRNS or something like that." And it's like, dude, that was a fake tweet from some leftoids on Twitter, and you're out here representing it as fact. And she starts off her video by like, "I made this channel to be honest and truthful to the facts, to cut through the news." And then she parroted not a single truth about the shooting at all, even though all the facts had come out and been confirmed when she made her video. It was just as disgusting as what Jimmy Kimmel did. Anyway, sorry to go on that tangent, but that is such intellectual dishonesty to pretend like the guy's right winger, just like the guy who tried to assassinate Trump with the Demolition Ranch T-shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
but that also brings up a good point, though. Is what speech should be protected? Is misinformation protected? Even if it's blatantly like a hard fact that it's not true what they're saying, even if they know it's not true that they're saying it, is misinformation protected?
No. Yes and no. It depends on the line that it treads on. If it treads on inciting violence through misinformation, like calling somebody a fascist, misrepresenting their views, taking quotes out of context to build a narrative where you put someone into an intellectual position where they're rationalized into thinking violence is an appropriate response, that is not freedom of speech and should not be protected. And using misinformation to further that end is wrong. Then the other side of that... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a fine line that you draw right there where it's if you say something, because if you say something and it causes someone to want to become violent is a very hard thing to kind of fully wrap your head around. If you are and it's unfortunate. The government cannot do anything to someone who calls us Nazis. Not really. No. Because it's not inciting violence. It's causing us to feel a certain way, and we are the ones who need to be in control of our emotions.
I think
now,
I don't know, man. So calling someone a Nazi alone isn't inciting violence. But when you put in the words like existential threats and you build this narrative around that person, like, for example, there was the whole punch a Nazi thing that was common on the left. That was a very, very common directive of speaking on the left, a very popular trend. Yep. And the leftist politicians and stuff like that, they didn't condemn any of that behavior or anything. Not that you should, like, I'm not saying like Nazis are good. No, they're not. But the problem is the framing of Nazi they endorsed violence tacitly against Nazis. And then they use the terminology Nazi against their political opponents who are actually not Nazis. So that's where the incitement comes in. When you build this violent narrative around a group and then take that group and then apply that label to people that do not actually align with that label.
Yeah. So in the situation where you say punch a Nazi, that automatically has just... That is a threat. You are saying you are going to physically go punch somebody, yes, regardless of, their actual ideals or not. And then throwing the label of Nazi from that to everyone you don't agree with, it's a gray area that we on the right, when we hear, hey, you're calling me a Nazi, I know I'm not a Nazi, fine, whatever, get over it. You want to punch me? Look, I'm going to return the hook. Yeah. That's not a threat. That's self-defense. You punch me, I punch you. Plain and simple. I don't care if you call me a Nazi. I don't care if you call me a fascist. I know I'm not. I'm looking at you going, hey, here's a mirror. Here's a mirror. I need you to look at your party. But it is this weird gray area because misinformation, unless it's directly like the intent of what they're saying is going to cause harm, it's not technically a
I think it's stochastic
infraction.
Terrorism.
It's what?
I think it's stochastic terrorism.
Explain that one.
Okay, I'll get the definition for you so I don't misrepresent it.
In the meantime, though, it's...
Stochastic terrorism is an analytic description used in scholarship and counterterrorism to describe a mass-mediated process in which hostile public rhetoric, repeated and amplified across communication, I gotta go to the full thing here. Across media amplification, communication platforms, elevates the statistical risk of ideologically motivated violence by unknown individuals, even without direct coordination or explicit orders. It's stochastic terrorism. It's absolutely what that is.
But yeah, I mean, we'd be in for a long haul if Kash Patel actually went down and cracked on that, unfortunately, because you are absolutely right. We'd be looking at Newsom, we'd be looking at AOC, we'd be looking at what was her name?
Ilhan Omar?
Yeah, Ilhan Omar. We'd be looking at almost every Democratic figurehead or speaker, and we would have hundreds of thousands of hours of material to go through to be like, hey, you guys clearly are kind of pushing this narrative and it's causing a big problem. And then we're going to get into this issue of, well, that's censorship. We're removing our opposition. And we've said it before, it's not the Democrats that we want to get rid of. It's the extremists that we want to reel back and say, you're not doing this to our country. You're not going to. We have traditional values as a country. I've heard so many people say, white America, we have no culture. You've heard this too, I'm sure. We have no culture. At what point in 250 years of being a country did we not get a culture? We have a culture. You just don't want to admit that it is Euro-Christian ideals that founded this country, even with the separation of church and state. Sure. We have a culture that was defined through thousands of lives lost in the American Revolution. Tens of thousands of lives lost, 100,000 lives lost during the Civil War. We have culture.
Yep.
You guys just don't want to admit that our culture stems from Christian morality.
Yep. I actually just had a conversation with somebody about that the other day, dude. And when I brought that point up, they had no retort to it. They were just like,
It's I don't know how you're going to retort to it, because here's the thing: you don't have to be Christian to understand that your morals come from Christianity.
You do.
You just have to look at it. Your morals are Christian, even if you're not. Yep. We're not sitting here saying women need to cover their faces and cannot speak in public. No, because we're not Islamic based.
Yep.
We have freedoms in this country that everybody should be treated equal. We are a Christian nation, even if you're not Christian, and that's okay. But understand that fundamentally, this is where we come from.
That's why. That's actually, that's why countries like in the Middle East, the fundamentalist, extremist Islamic countries, hate Americans regardless of whether or not you assign to Christianity, because whether you like it or not, your morals and how your worldview is based on Christianity. You are viewed as an enemy to these fundamentalists regardless of whether or not you assign to the religion because of that. And that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand, or maybe are willfully ignorant of that. So yeah, I totally think that's a very good point.
I don't think it's woefully unaware. I think they've been taught to be ignorant of it, for sure. Because this goes back to the whole thing we talked about the first episode you and I did together, about how the left is becoming more of a Maoist social communism.
For sure.
And the fundamentals of communism is to break down the family and religion. Yep. They do not belong into a communist society. And so for the last, well, at this point where we are now is 60 years into this project where slowly socialism has encroached upon our moral values and have taught people that you don't need religion. But fundamentally, if you don't have the same fundamental ideals as a country, as a cultural country, there's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of disagreements. There's going to be large amounts of problems that you're never going to resolve because you're not starting on the same baseline. Yep. And here's the freedom of religion argument. You're free to do what you want. And I know that America is a melting pot, but I don't think a lot of people understand what a melting pot actually means.
It's supposed because to be a blended culture.
What's that?
It's supposed to be a blended culture, a melting pot.
It's supposed to be a lot more than that. If you put something into a melting pot, sure, that aspect still resides, but a lot of the smaller items go away. Mm-hmm. If I have 25 pounds of gold in a melting pot and throw in a brick of silver, well, it's going to be, part of it's going to be silver, but you're not going to know. Like, there's going to be very few places where that silver comes back out. It's still primarily a gold molten
you're
gold
hitting on a great point there. That's one of the problems with mass immigration, is it causes culture shock. It causes these isolated communities, these pods that never get into the rest of the country and assimilate like they should. That's actually, you're hitting on a good point there.
Yeah. So, the more you bring in at one time, obviously, yes, you're going to get a culture shock. You're going to get a situation where we don't know what to do because these guys don't think like we do. They never wanted to think like we do.
No, we can't communicate.
And now we have
the language.
Well, there are people who come in. I'm currently working with some people right now. They're from somewhere, I believe, I can't remember, they said West or East Africa, and the father speaks no English. They're definitely supposed to be here. You're not going to get into this country from Africa without being documented. It's going to be very unlikely. I'm going to put it there. It's going to be very unlikely. The daughter speaks full English. They have taken the initiative to try to be very... I know they're connecting mostly with people who are similar to them, but obviously the daughter is in an American school. She's got American friends. She's gone through and tried to very much kind of Americanized a lot of what she's doing. You go in the house, I'm not seeing a bunch of African portraits or anything like that. It is just a very standard home, really. I wish there was more stuff from Africa.
So you're saying they're making an effort to assimilate, is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. So that's the point of the melting pot. You're going to have your culture if you come in from another country. You're going to have that. But you're also attempting to be part of everyone else. And then that's what gives America its beauty of a cross-cultural landscape. Why we have the Hispanic Mexican restaurants, the Chinese restaurants, why we celebrate certain holidays like Cinco de Mayo, which is not the Mexican Independence Day. I will not stress that enough. But we have this where multi-cultures come into our country. The things that do not line up with our morals get burnt off, and the things that do line with our morals get assimilated in, and that's perfectly fine. The problem is we have so many people coming in who have zero desire to assimilate to our culture, and they just allow their less desirable to American customs continue. And in some cases it's fine if you do it in private, but they bring it out in public to the point where it's like, hey, this is questionably like this is borderline, like I think we have some laws on this.
Yeah. Honestly, it feels like because of the mass immigration that we've had, and specifically mass illegal immigration, I don't mind. I am totally in support of legal immigration. I like it, honestly. I wouldn't mind if we increased it. Yep. I think we do 1 to 2 million a year, something like that. We could probably bump that to 3 or 4 million a year. I'd be okay with it. But the mass illegal immigration is a problem because those are the people that in large part come in and don't try to assimilate to the culture, and they try to force their beliefs, their cultural standards on us. And yeah, that's where that kind of divide that you were describing starts to kick in. And there's this creator Asmongold. I'm sure you know who it is. If you guys don't,
oh, absolutely.
If you guys don't know who Asmongold is, in the community here, he is a very big Twitch streamer, probably one of the largest, if not the largest Twitch streamer. And he makes a lot of content on a lot of different subjects, but some of it is political. And he made this comment about, it's an American protest when there aren't any American flags at the protest. And I'm just like, that's exactly right. And specifically, it's not an American it's an American protest from the left when that is the case. Like, right wingers,
you don't find a lot of people.
Yeah, right wingers have the American flag everywhere, and then the left wingers it's Palestine, Mexico, like Ukraine, never an American flag. And part of that goes back to the fundamental misunderstanding that a lot of Americans have about the American flag, especially on the left. They think it represents the government, but the flag doesn't represent the government. It represents the people. So, like, the left should be flying the flag, the American flag, in the face of the government when they disagree with the government, because it's actually the ultimate symbol of you're wronging us. But instead, they're flying the flags of other countries. It's like, why are you arguing for another country's interests in America? It's bizarre.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a whole argue about nationalism and if it's good or bad. Majority of America's time has been nationalist, imperialist for a while, but still nationalist. Like, everything is for America. It wasn't until World War II.
There's only two of them, man. You can't.
I know, but World War I, we entered into kind of like, hey, we're supporting our allies, and I guess we'll join in and kind of get this taken care of. World War II, I think, is when we really extended our global reach. But
absolutely,
even before World War. Yeah. Before World War I, we were still under the Monroe Doctrine, which was basically, hey, we are not taking care of Europe. We are not taking care of other countries. We are going to take care of America. We are going to basically become isolationists. And after World War I, we opened up a little bit with some trading. And then World War II, in large part with FDR, but we globalized ourselves. We became the powerhouse of the country and basically the police power
of the world.
Right. And there's a huge argument for the globalism of the UN and trying to establish the one nation. And I'm a little scared about the one nation because it sounds like all they want is socialism, communism. through the one world government. And I think that's kind of what we're getting into. And I'm really glad Trump's kind of pulling away from them and saying, no, we're done funding this. Everyone needs to pull their fair share if you want us to even remotely try to stay in on this. Yeah. But I honestly think like the idea of the United Nations to police over the entire world is ignorant and dangerous.
So I'm not like a isolationist per se. I don't want to like put myself in that category. I just don't like our constant involvement in foreign conflict. Like that's where some of it is understandable and justifiable, and we want to support our allies, and I totally support that. But I am sick and tired of like the regime change nonsense that America is engaged in. I'm sick and tired of like this nonsense going on in the Ukraine. Like I totally think that we should have supported Ukraine to start. But the Ukraine war is at a point now where Ukraine's not going to win this. They're just not. And they're going to have to concede some ground. Like they're going to have to lose some territory to remain a country. That's just where it's going to have to end. But we're doing this thing where we're continuing to let their people be just slaughtered in this war it is what it is at this point, you know, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time that Russia has gone after Ukraine, obviously, and they've been doing it for since the Soviets. Excuse me. They've been doing it since the Soviets. Before Russia even lost Ukraine as its own territory, they've been attacking the populace of Ukraine, what's now considered Ukraine.
That's the original government of Russia, isn't it, Ukraine? And then they separated out. Another capital was created in Moscow, right? Was the
you mean the Tsars?
I don't know the full history, man. I just feel like I remember somewhere that.
No, I'm going to have to look further into that. I don't think that's entirely accurate.
I thought it was like with Taiwan, because Taiwan is the original government of China, and it was driven out by the Maoists, right?
I'm going to have to look into that personally a little bit further. We can definitely kind of discuss that on a whole communism episode. That'd be perfectly fine. We can definitely get into some of the very dark things that have gone on in the Soviets world and the Maoist China world, because you think what the Nazis did was bad. You should definitely hear what the Soviets have done with the gulags, the Holodomor, and what happened in China with Mao. And I know you're looking it up right now.
Yeah, I can't help it. I jumped on these rabbit holes. Yeah, no, Ukraine was not the original government. They were one territory at one point, and then they separated out. But yeah, Taiwan was the original government of China. So
okay, so you have it first. Taiwan belongs to China. No, it doesn't. Do not give Taiwan to China. No. No, but it's the whole thing we're getting a little off track on with the First Amendment. You know, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We've kind of hit on the Kimmel thing's still relevant to the next point, which is press. And I can't remember the exact case study, but basically, not case study. The court decided that the newspaper is basically meant for entertainment, which I kind of start to disagree with. I feel like any agency that's reporting on calling itself news should be trying to stay as factually accurate as possible and not bending the story. Personally,
I want to ask you a question because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've been seeing a lot about stuff about this Munt Act or something that Obama removed in his presidential term in 2012 about propagandizing the media, being able to propagandize the American people. Do you know anything about that?
You said it's the Munt Act?
Munt, like M-U-N-D-T, something like that. Do you know anything about that? I just saw something.
The act, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Like I just saw some people talking about it on social media, and then I think I saw Trump made a post about it.
Okay, so the Mundt Act, more formally known as Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, authorized the U.S. government to engage in public diplomacy by disassembling information. Sorry, I can't read today. U.S. government to engage in public diplomacy by disseminating information about the United States to foreign audiences during the Cold War.
So I saw this argument that act was that Obama did something with that to make it to where the media can propagandize us, but it sounds like from what I understand, he got rid of that act, and that act sounds like it was allowing him to propagandize the American people.
So, I mean, in essence, it's not. It was meant for foreign people.
Okay.
It was meant for foreign adversaries, like during 1948. Hey, we need to.
But it allowed propaganda
during this specific time. We need to propagandize Eastern Germany to come over to Western Germany, Berlin specifically.
Okay.
You know, we need to get them out of communist Germany and into the rest of Germany before the Berlin Wall fell. And trust me, they were coming over in droves because communism was just that bad. If you guys don't seem to understand it, the people who were leaving communist end of Germany were leaving because it was communist. They weren't leaving because they had a bad day. They were having a horrid life because of what Stalin had been doing in Germany at that time.
Communism is so bad. That's why Florida is so staunchly against communism, because the population of peoples that fled to Florida to escape communism, and Fidel Castro, whatever his name was down there, fled to Florida to escape that. And people are like, why is Florida flipped so far red? Because the rhetoric on the Democrat Party is getting so dangerously close to communism. You've terrified those people from voting from you for voting for you.
Yeah.
Like
I would definitely love to talk the history of like how different states have flipped, because I know a lot of people like to say, well, in the 1960s the parties switched sides. No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. The Republicans have always been about individual liberty.
Yeah.
Always.
I made that argument in my
Party.
video. I don't know if you saw it, but like, tell me one political ideology from the right that has gone further right in our lifetime.
The only thing that the right has changed their mind on in the 1960s was the acceptance of the Dixiecrats, which I'm not a fan of that we did that.
Sure, of course.
But through history, the Democratic Party has ripped itself apart numerous times. The founding fathers, from day one, George Washington had wrote that our party is tearing itself apart because obviously we didn't have the Democrats and the Republicans. We had the Democratic Republic, and Washington saw in his own cabinet that there are two ideals, and they ripped themselves apart into the Federalists and the still Democratic Republican Party. And it just continued to break down. We had that during the Cold War. We had a group of Democrats who didn't believe in slavery. We had a group of Democrats who did believe in slavery. And eventually, about 100 years later, sorry, not the Cold War, thank you. Yes, the Civil War.
Okay, I was like, I think you're getting a little mixed up there.
Cold War, sorry. Have you noticed how many fights America gets into? But that being said, they were divided during the Civil War between Democrats who did not want slaves and Democrats who did. And eventually the Democrats who did, after they lost the Confederacy, and we can get into why Jim Crow laws came into existence under a Republican president. That was a horrible decision. Oh, go ahead.
I had no idea that happened under a Republican president.
Oh, yeah. So basically what happened was at the time we still had three parties in the presidential election, and the Republican and Democrat at the time, I can't remember exactly who the president was at this time. We'll get back to that when we actually do the podcast. They tied, so it had to go to Congress. And basically the two of them got together and said, hey, the Democratic frontrunners said, if I let you become president. Will you allow us to make laws in the state? And basically to keep Democrats out of the presidency, it was agreed. And so he went back to his state, and the South started making Jim Crow laws.
Oh.
So it was it was a awful compromise to keep Democrats out of the presidency and reforming a confederacy across the nation, that the states would be allowed to, and Republicans have already wanted states to make their own laws at this point. We've already been progressive enough by the time this happened that we no longer needed to be the progressive party. We can start being the conservative party. We made the changes we wanted to make sure that everybody had equal chance to succeed in life. And this was just a horrible situation where we allowed the Democrats to make their laws in their own states, and it caused Jim Crow laws to run rampant. And there was a lot of time before we can get rid of those Jim Crow laws, because the Republicans wanted states to make their own laws. And just kind of after Lincoln, there's a long history of Republicans kind of dropping the ball on exactly why we were founded, because Republicans could not agree on how progressive we can be versus how stringent we should be against these ideals.
I need to read up on that. I had no idea. That I'm very interested in learning more about that. That is
Absolutely.
Wow, that's a messed up situation to have been put in there that they allowed. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read up on that.
Going forward to the 60s, even then, these Democrats who wanted slave owners became the Dixiecrats because they no longer agreed with the policies of the Democrats because they were too progressive. And, the Dixiecrats were still a Christian people at that point. And the Dixiecrats realized that Republicans wanted states' rights. Now, a lot of the Dixiecrats have kind of been weaned out. Obviously, we have exposure therapy now where, hey, you're not leaving anywhere without finding someone of a minority opinion or race or anything. And a lot of that's kind of been weaned out. We had a comment on one of our prior videos of someone who was from Tennessee, who I believe it was Tennessee, who had grown up probably not with full comprehension of where we are right now, and he had gone to jail and he was just saying slurs, and he's kind of come to realize at this point, if I'm understanding his messaging correctly, realize at this point that his beliefs at that point were very ignorant and not accurate. And I don't know if he necessarily even meant to say any slurs in malice. I believe it was just in ignorance is what I kind of was gathering from what he was saying. So I'm glad you kind of came to the right conclusion of, hey, these words are not okay, period. But
so yeah. I'm gonna devil's advocate here for you, just to get back to the free speech conversation. We were talking about slurs are not okay to say, but do you think people should be able to say slurs, or should slurs have a legal punishment?
Oh boy, that's a fun conversation there, isn't it? So, the slurs themselves, for those of you who don't know, I do have Jewish family. And my cousin, who is Jewish, had his car keyed with certain Jewish derogatory terms. My aunt, who is not originally Jewish, could not believe that this would happen, and I'm like, hey, it's 2018 at this point, and I'm like, of course this is still going to happen. Do I think people have the right to say it? I don't think the government has the right to intervene with people saying it, so it is First Amendment protected. I do think we as a populace have better authority to get that shit corrected.
Okay. I kind of agree. I think that saying slurs like that, much like I think the solution to the extremism we're seeing in the Democrat Party, the solution to that is just stigmatizing it so much that nobody wants to say it or be associated with it. I think it's the same solution. Because, yeah,
absolutely.
Just like with the Democrat Party, you were talking about the concern of legally pursuing them. and like pressing charges on them being a bad thing, and you don't want to get rid of all Democrats, stuff like that. Yeah, it's bad optically because you're going to have absolutely that conversation that you discussed where people are going to be like, well, you're censoring your political opponents, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, and like we have that with the FCC right now and Kimmel.
Yep, exactly. That's
Because
exactly that. And
everyone's like, oh, the FCC's involved and they're trying to censor their opposition. No. Kimmel was losing money. Kimmel's target audience was 55 years old. Same with Colbert. Same with most of these late night shows. It's over 55. But we're seeing that right now with all these late night talk show hosts that they're tanking. A lot of their target audiences are 55 and up. They're not hitting the younger age. I think, a lot of them have become very political in a way that's targeted toward the left side of things, and they're missing out on everyone on the right. I used to watch David Letterman, and Letterman was not necessarily like a right-wing man. But he definitely did better than these current late-night talk show hosts.
Yeah, well, these late-night talk show hosts, what they don't understand is that you need to take shots at everybody. You can't just take shots at one side. And that goes back to that thing that I was talking about in one of my videos where much like the trans debate where people have issues with trans people being in women's sports, it's because they see the unfairness. And it's just like when you're making fun of just one side on the political spectrum on your late night show, people see the unfairness. They see that intellectual dishonesty. And it affects your viewership. It affects how people view you. That's why you see a lot of the class. Like I think people today are more divided by class than by race, that's a lot of the conflict we're seeing in this country today is the massive wealth disparity that is going on, the low wages, people feeling hopeless. That is all back to fairness. That's why there's so much anger.
Absolutely, and I mean no one's going to be perfect. We can definitely see like Letterman right now going through and kind of ripping on the right. He doesn't have a job anymore. He can do.
Yeah.
He can go ahead and be like, yeah, I'm going to pick my team now. I don't have a career writing on this. So it's it's just a failure on talk show hosts to not pick on both sides, to not elevate or reduce both sides simultaneously. And there's a reason why a lot of people just aren't watching it, especially the youth, which is starting to go more right as we're seeing. And I don't think, again, we've said this before, I don't think they're necessarily going more right. I think there's a few people who are definitely leaning right and going back to the church and all that. Sure. But I think a lot of it is our centered people are finding themselves pushed away from the ever descending left
narratives
movement. Yeah.
That's kind of like, I know we discussed this in the introductory podcast and I discussed it a little bit in my 2 videos that I put up, but that's really honestly what happened to me is I woke up one day and the friends I had, everything were slandering me as all these horrible things for my views. And it was just, honestly, it felt like an overnight thing. Like in 2014, 2015 is when it really started. And I remember, like, I talked about in one of my videos, like the debates I used to have, like how they turned from being civil to doxing and violence. But it wasn't just online that I experienced that. I experienced that in real life with people that I was close with that we differed politically minimally, but suddenly our minimal conflicts became the centerfold of focus as though they were like life-ending, altering problems. And and I think a lot of people, like you're saying, are finding themselves being demonized and chastised in society, and they're going, what the hell is going on? What is going on over there? And their politics aren't really right-leaning, but the right-leaning side is the only side that makes any kind of sense right now. So they're, you're putting these people that would normally vote for you in a situation where they want nothing to do with you. Because you're so so out of the loop. You're like, you've alienated them.
And I mean, that's what they're going to keep finding. You can sit there and have Gavin Newsom on his podcast swearing and saying we need to rise up. But here's the ultimate message. We just had a major Republican death on our party, and we went out and prayed.
Yep.
We went out and we hugged each other, and it didn't matter if you were right or left. If you were out there to support, we were with you.
I actually just watched an interview with a teacher on, I think it was James Klug, the channel on YouTube. I don't know if you know him, but he goes out and does like street interviews with people. And he was at one of these Charlie Kirk memorials at the Turning Point USA headquarters. And there was a teacher who generally considered herself left wing, and she was talking about how some of her, and I can't remember what subject that she taught, but one of our students years ago, this is before 2020, brought up Charlie Kirk and wanted to talk to the class about him and have a discussion about him in class. And she poo-pooed it. She said no, because she went home and she, went and researched him to find out if he was appropriate to talk about in class. And from her just cursory search, like just quick Google search, all she saw was like white supremacy, like all this like stuff claiming that he's all these awful things. So she told the student no. And then she talked about how a couple of years later, maybe it was the following year, another student came to her and demanded to talk about Charlie Kirk. And when she told him, no, we're not going to do it, he insisted that Charlie Kirk is not those things, and made her with him go through the receipts of Charlie Kirk's positions. And she said that she had realized how poisoned she was from just going to the same like typical traditional, what you'd expect, media sources, and not actually watching the full context of clips. And I thought that was really a poignant point for her to make about where we are in society, where information is so what do I want to say, laundered, that it's not even just disinformation. It is outright like poisonous propaganda. Yeah, like it is. When you demonize someone so much that an educator who is trying to teach you to critically think won't even talk about you or talk about someone, that is a massive problem. And it actually, this just occurred to me. I didn't think about this when I watched the video. That is exactly what Charlie Kirk said in one of his quotes. He said, when you stop talking, violence begins.
Oh, and the thing is, I hate to say this, it's not just when you don't talk, violence begins. This is what those who are on the far end of the left actually want. Like, I don't think people quite understand how communism works. Communism at its foundation starts with the people rising against their government. Every time the Democrats sit there and say, we need to rise up. If they say they're just a Democrat or a Democratic Socialist and say, we need to rise up and fight, I want you to really think for a second, because that's not American. That's not American saying that. That is communism. Well, that is not capitalist. That gives you the right to pick your job, pick what you spend your money on, pick what food you want to buy, how much you want to buy. That's not American capitalism. That is communism speaking for a revolution to send us into Soviet Russia. And I tell you right now, if we end up in Soviet Russia, this podcast is not only dead, but I am going to be put into a camp.
Yeah. What's crazy about that too is like the left constantly talk about camps, constantly talk about people being put in camps, but the things they're advocating for are what will lead us to that point.
Right.
But man, I just spaced my point. I was gonna make a point about something you said, but you were talking about how it's not American to rise up. We are a rebellious country. Like that is.
Well, yes, but here's the problem with that, because what we did during the American Revolution was in response to the king not giving us some sovereignty over ourselves.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people forget about that. Is we did not want to make ourselves our own country in totality.
No.
The only reason we did is because the king refused to give us sovereignty over ourselves and reduce the tax burden upon us. We did not want to become our own country. We were forced to fight to become our own country.
Yeah, the point that I was going to continue to make was that the revolutionary roots that we have are not who we became. We became a reformist government, not a revolutionary government. And that's kind of where I was going to say I agree more with you. But our roots are in rebellion is all the point that I was going to make. So like the average argument, how I was going to bridge it was the average argument you'll get from somebody who's on the left who has just a basic fundamental understanding of the history of America will make that exact argument to you about how, oh, we rebelled here, here, and here. Well, it's like, yeah, but look how those rebellions turned out. We rebelled against England, created our country. Wonderful. Okay, what about Democrats? Here you are again, prime on the stage. How about the rebellion to keep slavery? How'd that go for you? You know?
Yeah. And I mean, there's always going to be the arguments of like, oh, at the time of the height of slavery, the amount of people who owned it were 1.7 or whatever the percentage is. It's like, it doesn't matter. Your party's platform, your officials' platform was
like
to keep
today,
it.
Like today with the extremism that is the face of the Democrat Party today. It may only be a small subset of the party that actually believes it, but the face of the platform is that. The policies they advocate for are the extremist policies. So it's much the same today.
Well, and, you know, there's also going to be an argument coming up right now that I just kind of want to address because this podcast has held Democrats responsible for the continuation of slavery quite a bit. And we're talking kind of like very heavy Democratic opinions here by saying that. But there's also going to be the argument about we as white people, heaven forbid, are responsible for it too. It's like, well, hang on here. I understand what your argument is because my argument is that Democrats are the problem with slaves. I'm not holding every Democrat responsible for this.
No.
We're driving a point by saying Democrats wanted slavery because politically in the 1860s that's what their opinion was.
Well, and also the point of this podcast that we've both described is not to condemn all Democrats or all Republicans. It's for the people to reclaim, specifically Democrats, because that's kind of where I'm waging my war for, is for the Democrats to reclaim their party from the extremists, much like the Democrats should have reclaimed their party from the extremists who wanted to maintain slavery in the 1860s. So that's the point that I was kind of hammering on. If I wasn't clear, I apologize. That's exactly what I was meaning, though, is that like today, where extremism is the face of your political party and your mainstay political politicians on the Democratic side are advocating for those policies, you guys need to reclaim that. You need to oust those politicians that are driving these wedges, tacitly endorsing political violence and dividing us the way that they are. You have to take it back from them. I know that a lot of you guys would probably say the same thing about Republicans, saying that they're being divisive, but I would ask you, go and look at the political positions of the Republicans over the last 30 years and tell me which ones changed to go further right. I can't think of one. They still believe in pro-life opinions. They're still the core of the Republican Party are Christians. The only policies I can think of that have changed on them have gone left. They're more accepting of gay marriage now. They don't like the term marriage being used because they view it as a religious term, but they're accepting of the union. Trump waved a pride flag at his announcement for his first presidential term. Like, the Republican Party is not what you think it is. So I challenge you, anyone who has an issue with what I am saying here, go and look at the political stances of the Republican Party over the last 30 years, and you'll realize, like I did, that they are not what they are being portrayed as, whereas you see it on the House of Congress every single day, what the Democrats are advocating for. And that's why I wage so strongly against them. I did not mean to criticize all Democrats in that. I just want to make that absolutely clear. We're trying to advocate for you.
Well, it's just kind of a good point. Like, you know, we our goal here is to reach out to not just the right to, you know, let's keep it up, guys. You know, let's make sure that we don't let go again, because ultimately I think the biggest issue with Democrats right now is that the right stopped talking. For a long while, we stopped sprouting our opinions and just let Democrats go off and say what they wanted instead of retaliating against them. And, you know, they got their echo chamber. This goes back to the internet being net negative, net positive you were talking about. The biggest thing I see is we have all information at our fingertips, but we have no way to research it. And then we often find ourselves in echo chambers.
Well, I think we have ways to research it, but people, that plays more into the psychological side of people, though, don't you think? Like, people don't, many people don't want to. It's easy to relegate, you know what I mean?
Most of us are only going to look for confirmation bias.
Yes.
Most of us are only going to look for things that we agree with. And again,
Yes.
that's the echo chamber. So if you put yourself in an echo chamber instead of fighting your ideals, you're obviously never going to want to be wrong. So how can we have a conversation if you don't want to be proven wrong? I want to be wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Let's find out why. Because if your argument stands the test of time, I'm wrong. Cool. We figure that out. That's how science works. Retestable over and over and over. But when you're in an echo chamber, it's not retestable. It's reading the same paper. You're just reading the same paper and saying, this is true.
That relegation that people want to do, that confirmation bias that people pursue, and bumping in or locking themselves into those echo chambers on the internet was one of the main points I was trying to make in that video about whether or not the internet was in net negative or net positive. And also the reason why I was doing that was because it's not only that you're in an echo chamber, because if you're in an echo chamber, you can be in a positive echo chamber where everyone's loving each other, saying good things, but that's not what happens in a lot of these political ideological ones. And they, in fact, usually devolve into further extremism. And that's the problem that I see with the internet as a whole in the Western world. Because like I said in the video, I understand how like worldwide that's not been the case, because it has brought so many people to the conversation. And it probably has played a large role in de-radicalizing some of these countries that are, you know, in real bad situations. But,
You know, there used to be with the internet, before the internet, and a lot of these small towns still kind of share a lot of this, but there's a sense of community.
yes.
And,
You
you know,
that.
it didn't matter. Yeah, you do. But it didn't matter if you didn't, you know, think the same way as your neighbors, because they were your neighbors. You know, I know my neighbors and I don't politically agree. I'm fairly certain we don't. And that's fine. I still talk to them. I still, you know, I've had beers with them. It's fine. We don't talk politics. I think both of us are a little too nervous to kind of jump the gun and ask anyone's opinion about anything right now. And that's unfortunate, because it'd be nice to have conversations like that sometimes. I ran into them just last year during the election, and I voted, they voted, they came out, I was like, oh, you voted? Like, yeah. And then we just awkwardly kind of smiled and nodded our heads at each other like, anyway, see you at home.
Thank you for doing your civil duty.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to ask who you voted for, which is fine. But we used to be able to talk about things like that. I mean, you think about Nixon versus JFK. It was, hey, I voted for Kennedy. Oh, I voted for Nixon. Hey, that's fine. We don't agree on how to get somewhere. But they said it during the presidential debate itself. We don't agree with how to get there, but we do agree that the best for America, I'm paraphrasing, but we agree on we agree to do what's best for America. We don't agree on how to get there.
Yeah.
They said that during a presidential debate, and you don't get that anymore.
No.
You don't get that from either side anymore.
You're so at each other's throats, and it's because this is it's such a long point to get into. It's because of the demonization that we've done in society to each other. It's because politicians and so many other people have found it so much easier to manipulate people because you know that people want that confirmation bias. They want the easy solution. Me want good thing. He want bad thing. Like, it's literally that.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that video. But
yeah, it's so good.
But the internet's kind of taken away from that, because no longer is it like my community. It is now right here on my laptop is my community.
Yep.
And if you don't agree with my community, you shouldn't be in it. It's like, no. Hang on. Your parents should be part of your community first and foremost.
Yes.
Your family should be the ultimate community you have, because
Absolutely.
the respect for your parents is, you know, I'm not super Christian, but respect for the parents is respect for any power above. You know, and that's a fundamental value of majority of the right, Christians. Majority of America through history had believed that there was power up above. And regardless of if it's God, Allah, however you want to perceive it, respect in your own family should come first. Then you have the people in your direct community. You know, traditional Republicans, the community is supposed to take care of each other. You know, if you are disabled and can't work, your community should be working to help provide for you.
Okay, man, if we're gonna rail against communism as hard as we do because of the...
I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying that the community works. I'm not saying that because, again,
because that just sounds like the utopia of communism to me. Like the same argument, basically.
Kind of. Unfortunately, we will always have a government, no matter how you look at it, and that's something communism gets wrong. Socialism and communism gets wrong. Is we will always have a government, and the more power you put to the government, the more we will be oppressed.
Yes,
the people, and that's something that I think leftists just don't seem to comprehend.
I feel like there's a fine line to tread, though, there, because the less government you have, though, the more you become oppressed. But you become oppressed from a corporatist side. With the less you need regulation, and you do need some support, some voice, advocating.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely people on the right who can be progressive. I mean, though we haven't had one in a while, really. Teddy Roosevelt was an extremely progressive right-wing individual. Extremely progressive. The trust-busting Teddy.
You got any examples?
The railroad strikes that he busted out. Okay. I believe there was... Oh gosh, what were the other? There was several trusts that Teddy had broke up throughout the railroads.
I don't know much about it, so that's why I asked.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's what Teddy Roosevelt's mainly known for. Was he went through and he busted up trusts. He's like, no, we're not doing this. Big Oil got busted up under Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay.
So, and I know a lot of them are kind of coming back together.
The big oil companies, I feel like I remember a little bit about that back then. They were, oh my God, I don't want to speak on it. I don't remember enough, but it was
Standard Oil originally.
Okay.
Originally, it was Standard Oil, and it was owned by, I believe it was Rockefeller at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I just didn't want to say it right. I didn't want to be wrong.
And then, with help of,
they were monopolizing the hell out of it, right?
They had monopolized everything, but not just the oil, but they had also monopolized the railroads themselves. Yeah. So they said, hey, if you guys want to dig it, we will transport it. And so. But what they weren't being told was not only were they paying for shipping, they owned the railroad itself that it was getting shipped on. And so they basically monopolized the entire multi-chain facets of oil production. And
Talk
Teddy
about getting some wealth. Holy cow.
It basically drove a bunch of independent people out of business. So Teddy broke it up into 7 different oil companies, Exxon, Mobil, multiples, but we obviously we know ExxonMobil is now currently back together, so they're slowly kind of starting to combine again. However, someone wants to feel about that. But we can have progressive Republicans. We can have people who have interest in the people, not in corporations. And unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle, we have Democrats who say they're for the people, and a little secret, they're for themselves. Mm-hmm. They want power for themselves, so they tell you they want to help you. Then we have Democrats who want to help big business. We're talking about the people who are super upset about Harvard losing money and the medical department, companies losing out. Thank you. Pharmaceutical companies losing out on money. Then we have Republicans who are doing the same thing, where we have Republicans who have interest in big business. And then we have, and trust me, they're in for big business. And then we have Republicans who are interested in the people that are very seldom. We don't have a lot of Republicans who are in power talking about helping the people. Ironically, when Republicans want to help big business, some reason it tends to help everybody regardless. Because when big business seems to get helped, they tend to lower everything else because their burdens are lower.
I think, well, like under Trump's first presidency, when he lowered that corporate tax rate, we saw that wage increase. My family personally benefited. I haven't told this story on the podcast yet, but my family was living in this trailer that was like the ceiling was collapsing, black mold everywhere. It was horrible. Like you'd walk out in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and you're walking through water like this deep in my hallway. die. Like, it was horrible. And I was homeless, like, under Obama. I was homeless 3 times, and then we got into that crappy trailer. And Trump got into office, and I was, like, super hesitant to support the guy. I didn't vote for him in his first term. And he got in, and around 2018, 2017, something like that, whenever he lowered the corporate tax rate, my wife's wage, the day that the bill, like, as soon as it passed, like, as soon as it happened, my wife's wage, she worked at Target at the time, they're like, we're increasing wages to $15 an hour. My wife's wages, my wife's paychecks went from like $390 a paycheck to literally $990 something a paycheck. Changed our lives, like, totally. Like, we got out of the junker car we were in, we got out of that trailer into another trailer that was a lot nicer, and now we own a home. Like, totally changed. Like, yeah, what you're talking about there, I think it's how they go about that change in legislating big business that drives that. I think that they're well, and it's not all Republicans, but the Republicans who do it, like what Trump has done and how he did it, they seem to benefit people when they do. But I will say that we've seen that big business mindset from Republicans in the past do the complete opposite, like with the banking crisis in 2008 from George Bush, allowing that bubble to be created.
So it's the argument of regulations and how much regulations is good versus bad. Personally, I think a lot of regulations can be very bad. It just depends on what you're kind of looking at. The housing issue of 2008, that was, bankers knew better.
Yeah,
they knew better. They never should have been doing that. They were talking
about it. Like, those communications that came out during it, like, and even the politicians, they knew when they passed the law it was going to happen. They created this. They knew they were creating a big bubble.
Well, and the thing is, we kind of have not really a bubble, but it's kind of a bubble right now with our housing markets, because houses are worth, I don't know the exact statistic, but I can honestly tell you, like, I don't live in a big house. My house is probably 35% overvalued right now. And the reason for that is because of these companies who are buying single family homes to rent out has inflated artificially our housing market. And the way to fix it is to, I don't believe I talked to you about this. I talked to another friend of mine about this. But the way to fix it is either tax those companies who own the homes, in which case they're going to just increase the rent of the people who live there, which is not going to help. No. Or we build a bunch of houses and essentially crash the housing market. Yep. Unfortunately, I think there may be a way to do it Teddy Roosevelt style, where we break up what people can do, pass legislation that says you just cannot, and they have to get rid of it by law or be fined. Well, I think there's a way to do it like that. But the problem is you have to have both sides of the House and Senate kind of come together in agreement that we need to do this for our people and not for the big business interest. Yeah. And it's going, no matter what you do, it's going to hurt some part of the economy is going to get hurt. Sure. Because we are going to have BlackRock and Vanguard, who own a lot of these housing or a lot of these companies that are doing this. They're going to lose stock because they no longer can own houses, or they're going to be paying extra for it. Or the people are going to be losing money, and they're not going to have more money to spend on actual goods and services that are actually going to pick up the economy even faster than just a home mortgage or rent. So unfortunately, no matter how we do this, because of the regulation lowering and allowing these people to buy these homes and getting into the single family rental market, we're going to have to hurt ourselves in order to fix ourselves.
Sure. And I was going to say that you could solve this problem without crashing the housing market by regulating how many homes these companies can buy in cities with certain populations, and then also at the same time in creating a surplus of homes. And that could be handled locally without even the federal government being involved. You could just do that through local.
Absolutely. It's one of those things though with we don't have to crash the housing economy, but some part of if you say, hey, you guys who are bringing in 500 million in single family rentals across the nation can no longer do that. That's $500 million they've just lost out on. That's going to reflect in the stocks. No matter how you look at it, it's going to reflect in the nation's S&P or NASDAQ or Dow.
Sure.
It's going to reflect no matter how you look at it. Now, what it's also going to do is open up a bunch of houses, increase the demand greatly for housing. And if you increase the demand, increase the supply, but not the demand. What you're going to end up with is an influx, which is going to crash a lot of housing prices because those houses have to go down in price. All houses need to go down in price simultaneously. So no matter what, you're going to have a housing, like, it doesn't have to be a crash. But you are going to see a great reduction, which are going to make quite a few people upset, especially like my house is worth quite a bit right now. If I can foresee it coming, sell my house, be homeless for 2 weeks, and then go buy a new house, I will.
I kind of want to point to like Houston, Texas as an example of this. They focus on building single family homes over like apartment complexes and things like that. And I don't think they have any regulations in place to prevent from corporations from coming in and buying them for rental purposes. But their prices are absurd. Like what I spent on this house, I would have got a house nearly twice the size in Houston, Texas for the same price. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, they're huge. They're beautiful brick built homes. When I was looking to buy this house, we were actually looking at Houston, Texas to move down there because our money would go so much further. We would get so many more amenities that we would not get here where I live. I'm not going to reveal that, but
it's not Texas.
It's not Texas. But we were thinking about moving down there because of that. And because of how cheap housing was down there, I started to look into why it was. And it's because their local legislation specifically focuses on building single family homes. So like, that's what I was saying. Like, and it's not like those homes are dirt cheap. It's just, you get a lot of home for what you're spending. Like in other places, like I spent $400 on my house, $390. And down there, $390, I would have got like a 3,500 square foot home down there. Like maybe
I should move to Texas.
Maybe close to 4,000 square foot when I was looking to buy. And my house isn't small. My house is 2,789 square feet, but like that house was brick built, multi-level, 3-car garage. Like some of these houses I was looking at were absurd. And so like that, I think would be a better solution to start with, is just right now we're just not building enough.
No, I definitely just think that we need to get, especially these large companies. If you're just some dude who lives in Nebraska, who buys 3-4 homes and rents them out, keep your 3-4 homes to rent out. That's fine. But you're talking about a multi-million-dollar company that comes in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they come in and just go, hey, you're selling this house for $195,000. Here's $225,000. We'll take it right now. Like, who's going to say no to that?
No. Yeah, nobody.
But no one else is going to pay that either. So it's like, of course you're going to sell it to that company. Then they're going to flip it. They don't care about the home. No. First off.
Oh no. Ceiling cam. Ryan, are you okay? Okay, that camera sat down there for a while, so I was getting a little bit worried you weren't okay. I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, how the hell did you fall through like that?
I'm gonna keep all this in too, guys. I've been telling him to buy a boom arm. I'm telling him to buy all these things to help the production quality of this podcast, and he's being resistant to it. So get in the comments and tell him, Ryan, buy a freaking boom arm, buy a proper camera mount. Tell him. He'll listen to you.
This is on a boom arm.
You have your camera on a boom arm, but not your freaking microphone?
Yes.
Brother! Oh my God. How are we in this scenario right now? This man's eating his microphone when he's talking. Sounds like he's talking through 14 pillows but yelling at the same time.
Now I gotta fix this shit. This better all get clipped out.
No, I'm leaving it in here. We're gonna
fuck you.
I'm gonna leave you exposed, man. People are gonna know Who's holding back the production quality on this podcast?
Yeah, fuck off.
Get yourself sent up. There you go. Good boy. There you go.
All right.
Good job. What were you saying? Now I'm distracted by your shitty setup.
Yeah, fuck off.
All right. So, anyway, that was the Censored Society podcast. Thank you for listening.
We were talking about housing. That's right. We were talking about housing and working in Texas. How the heck did we were supposed to be talking about free speech and we're on housing in Texas, brother? That's crazy.
You know what? ADHD is contagious.
It is, apparently so. I apologize. I'm untreated, but at least I'm not going to be like Destiny talking about all that crazy crap.
You should be afraid. You should be afraid to speak in public.
Yeah, you should be afraid of death.
Yeah, no. Sorry, Destiny. If I see you in public, let's square up. Let's have a talk.
I was like, don't you say that. That's like the opposite. But no, you're okay. You redeemed yourself. Yeah. I don't know. Honestly,
square. Set a table, sit down, have some coffee.
Honestly, would never want to have a conversation with Destiny. Back in the day, I probably would have been interested in it, but now he's so far off the rocker that I don't think I could have an intellectually honest conversation with the man.
No, absolutely.
I think he's a lost cause. Like much like Hassan Piker. I thought that Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks was kind of coming around to being more of a reasonable person to speak with, but then I saw her. Oh God, I don't remember who she was talking to, but recently she was just on some podcast and the person left because she was like, I'm not going to sit here and just listen to another conversation where every single problem is because of the Jews.
Yeah, it was one of, I think it's, I don't think PBD owns it. Maybe PBD does. But it was with, she used to be on The Biggest Loser.
Oh, I don't know her name, man. That doesn't help. But yeah,
right,
while you're looking that up, I'll talk about it a little bit. And I totally like I feel like there's so few people on the left that I'd be willing to engage in any kind of actual intellectual discussion with because they're so intellectually dishonest. They're so off the deep end. Everything they say is a talking point. It's not actually reality. They reference things in bad faith, so you can't actually talk to them about the reality of situations that are occurring. She's a good example.
Jillian Michaels.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, she walked around, whatever, Jillian Michaels, she walked off the show because she's like, I'm not going to be a party to listening to you just blame the Jews for everything again. And that's
Absolutely.
every time you watch a left-wing podcast, I challenge you, find a difference between a left-wing podcast and a groiper. I can't tell a difference between Hassan and a groiper. Like they both just hate the Jews, and everything at the end of the day comes back to it's the Jews' fault. And it's just, I don't blame that girl for walking off. I wouldn't have wanted to either. And that made me lose a lot of respect for Anna Kasparian because, like I said, I thought she was kind of coming more toward that center again to have rational conversations. I felt that way about Cenk Uygur a little bit too, but every time I think that, I go and I watch him on Piers Morgan and he's off the deep end again. And I'm just like, good Lord, man. Like, can we just get some like honest conversation? That's kind of why I want with this podcast, Ryan, like when we do this, when we get more viewers and people get engaged, I want to bring like your average lefty on.
Yeah,
to talk
absolutely. Just so you know, Tyler, the talk show was her take. And yeah, it was Young Turks criticized Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for using the moment for his own political purposes, taking up his relationship with Kirk. So Julian had left the podcast about that. If I'm going to have to look more into her take. I believe that's some affiliation to PBD. And if you don't listen to PBD podcast, I mean, he's pretty good, but he does a lot of work with Young Turks.
I don't listen to him. That's
well.
Patrick Bet David, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff, but I've never really watched him. I watched him on that one capitalist versus 20 socialists or communists, whatever he did on Jubilee, and I thought he was pretty good.
Jubilee. No, yeah, no, and I think he's pretty good. I think he's fairly well grounded with what he talks about. I don't think it's like, some of the Daily Wire stuff where it gets a little bit like, I don't necessarily like your opinion, but I think PBD is a great example of someone who came to this country legally and has shown exactly why capitalism is better than communism.
You were talking about Daily Wire there for a second, and I don't mean to just go on a tangent with Daily Wire, but I actually have a problem with Daily Wire for some of what you just said. Like you listen to them and you're kind of like, okay, with some of their opinions, but for me, they're very dry, and I kind of want to bridge this into like how Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA is bringing on like a guest rotation of speakers to do the college campus tours going forward, and I don't really think that's a great solution because like so far they've had Michael Knowles on there, and I don't know if they're going to bring any more other Daily Wire guys in there, but they just don't. They don't have the charisma, man. Like Ben Shapiro has a little bit of charisma, but
with the talk show itself, I'm not sure. But with the college events, those were pre-done a long time ago. Right after the incident with Charlie, Michael and Ben both went on to their podcast and said, we already have events lined up with him at these colleges and we're not canceling. So, I mean, those are already kind of there. The podcast itself, I don't know. I'm glad Erica's taken over. And I hope it kind of stays that way, but
she's not going to be on it, though. She said she's not going to be on it. She said it's not going to be a regular thing, her being on the podcast. It's going to be the like executive producer and stuff like that mostly on there. They're going to have a rotating cast on that. But my concern isn't so much his podcast as it is the college campus reaching the youth. Because when I was watching that Minnesota event, and this is going to be controversial for the people in my community that we're building over here that are religious, but for a long time I've picked up the Bible. I've started to I haven't read anything yet. I've been working up to it, but I picked up a Bible. I have it, and I'm going to start reading it. And it was because of Charlie Kirk's death that I did it, but it was also because of the way that he was able to speak around it so charismatically and like make it relatable. When I was watching that Minnesota event with Michael Knowles, and there was like this pastor or somebody came out and did a prayer before it started, and I was like, it was everything that I hated about religion. Like, it was so dry. It was so uninteresting. It was so long-winded. And I was like, good Lord, man. Like, and they kept showing the crowd, and like the crowd was joining him in a prayer, right? But they kept looking up like, are we still going? And like, I worry that without Charlie Kirk there, like, that's what we're going to get into, is that dry religious perspective. And when Michael Knowles came out, yeah, he was totally polite. He has some humor, but he did not make it compelling, interesting, or charismatic enough to carry that. Right. And he also did some other stuff that I wasn't a big fan of. Like when Charlie would be debating with people and the crowd would kind of get a little raucous, he'd be like, hey, no, guys, like calm down, like respect the person coming up here. It takes a lot to come up here and debate your ideas like this. And Michael Knowles just let that crowd boo the ever-living piss out of those leftists that were up there talking.
All of them have said it. Like out of every right-leaning debater that it has been out there, Charlie was the most moderate of everybody. Like he allowed you to speak, and now that he's gone, this is kind of what you're left with. Is you're left with the people who do not care for your opinion. We're trying to be different, obviously, but they don't care about the opinions of Democrats because, and I don't want to say that as a generalization really, but what they care about is that you understand our position, and we're going to give you an exact reason why we think our position is better. As far as a debate goes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. But as far as trying to reach people, it can be a little bit demonizing.
Well, yeah, not even just demonizing it. I think it was just, I think a lot of the reason why Charlie Kirk was so successful was that he was charismatic and he related to the youth that were watching him. Michael Knowles doesn't relate to the youth. Like I watched in Matt Walsh, for example, like Matt Walsh has videos, and I don't know if he's kidding or not in them. A lot of people say he's joking, but a lot of people will see these videos of him like condemning anime and all that kind of stuff and not be able to click with that. And like Charlie Kirk, he said things like don't spend all day watching anime, don't spend all day playing video games, but he didn't condemn you for engaging those things. And that's kind of like when I was growing up, and I made a point about this in that one of those videos I made, the purity test used to be on the right, where the right was like Magic the Gathering is the devil, Dungeons and Dragons is the devil, like Pokemon is the devil. They were protesting in front of these places, and it was just like this constant like religious oppressive purity test. And that's the kind of energy that I get from a Michael Knowles and a Matt Walsh and a Ben Shapiro. And I don't want this movement of people coming back to Christianity and back to the right, or even just towards the center, to get taken over by this religious puritanical position that is one, not charismatic and is uninteresting, but also will swing the pendulum too far, because I think Charlie Kirk did ride that moderate line really well. And made things that are right-wing perspectives compelling. I don't think we're going to have the same youth movement towards the middle, towards the center that we had under Charlie Kirk, unless we find someone who can bring that level of humor. Like Steven Crowder, when he did his Change His Mind stuff, was great at that. I think he's the next step. Like, he was excellent at that same exact kind of thing. He had that same humor and wit and stuff, but and I guess he's going to be doing a Change My Mind this upcoming week, but he's bringing it back. But that is my primary concern with the right movement right now, is losing that youth that you were talking about, because we just don't have Charlie Kirk anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I know you were saying the prayer seemed kind of boring. I think that's a big thing with Michael with a Catholic Mass. I personally don't like Catholicism more than any other form of Christianity. I'm fine with religion in of itself, but Catholicism, I do agree, just kind of drones on, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought he was a Christian. Okay. I don't know much about the difference between Catholic and Christianity and all that.
A Catholic can tell you.
I'm sure.
But in my opinion, I don't believe there was. So.
Yeah, it's just do you get what I mean though? Like, do you like the youth is going to have a hard time relating to the right if we end up going to that dry religious perspective? And this isn't criticism of anybody who's Catholic or religious, but like, you got to be interesting, and you have to capture the minds and hearts of people and make compelling arguments.
Absolutely. Politics is a weird thing, because it's either you're very interested in it or you're very not. Same with religion.
Yeah.
I think I fall underneath kind of both categories, which is kind of weird. I love politics, and I love all religions, current and myth.
Okay.
So for me, it's like, any theology you kind of look at, I want to know more about it. And not just theology, ideology. I want to look at it. And it gets to a point where like you really start kind of breaking down everything, and you go, hey, there seems to be some universal truths to the world.
Yeah.
Especially when you break down theology, there's definitely seem to be some universal truths to the world. And I can tell you right now, the universal truth that we can do anything that's the socialist wants, where everyone agrees, is highly unlikely. But if you have a universal truth where we don't kill each other, we leave each other alone and kind of live by our own devices, so long as we aren't harming another, that seems to be fairly sustainable.
That's like starting your morals on third base.
Right.
Yeah. And that's an argument that you see a lot of people from I actually watched Ben Shapiro make that argument. Like, you are starting your morals on third base. Like, that's why you think murder is bad. Like, that's why other cultures don't have that same shared perspective on other moral issues. But yeah, we got off the rails there from our free speech conversation. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on there?
I think we got pretty well through speech, religion, press. The last one is the right to
Assemble.
what?
You said you wanted to talk about assembly at one point.
Thank you. Yeah, it was assembly. I don't really have an issue with assembly. I think you should be allowed to go almost wherever you want as long as it's not in someone else's property. I think the biggest issue we have is that we have a lot of people who gather together and then very easily get incited to start committing violence. And I mean, it's not, it's a lot of people on the far left.
Mass hypnosis, psychosis.
Right. You get a lot of people who are very angry together, and the anger tends to just kind of rise for some people. Not going into the fact that during the riots with BLM, when those were happening, you know, I had a situation where there was a local Target that needed to be boarded up nightly. We had to nightly board up this Target and undo it in the morning.
In your state?
There was a Target
In your
that
state?
was getting in my state. We had to
Wow.
board it up nightly.
Wow.
And then undo the board ups the next day so that way they can do business, because these protesters were there almost every night for about a 2-week period, I believe. And what they didn't tell you, what's the quotes for? Protesters, you're right. Well, no. So what they didn't tell you, and we found out from the district manager of Target for that area, was the guy who was organizing these protests was actually blacklisted by the FBI as a Islamic extremist.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah. So not only was this like BLM protest, but it was being organized by Islamic extremism. So it's like, I don't blame all Democrats for being violent, but the protests for the Democrats seem to have unfaithful players who antagonize and incite. And on the right, we see some of that. I mean, you got that with January 6th. There were definitely some people there trying to incite, but a majority of people just kind of walked through.
I moseyed around, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a level of, I think, moral control, to kind of sit there and be like, these weirdos are getting very irritable. I'm just going to leave, or I'm going to tell them, hey, no, you need to knock it off, because this isn't what we're here for. We're not here to be animals and break things because we're upset. We are here to tell people we are upset and show them that we want to talk. Because if you're breaking things, no one wants to talk to you.
Yep, exactly.
I've had children, when they throw tantrums, I don't want to talk to the children.
No.
I want to let them just throw their tantrum, and then they're going to get in trouble later if that's what they need to be in trouble for. If it's something they don't need to be in trouble for, I'm going to wait for them to calm down, and then they're probably going to get upset again because I told them, hey, that tantrum was not necessary.
Sure.
And that's the fun part of having children, is teaching them that, hey, you have big emotions. Breaking things is going to get you nowhere.
Oh man, you bringing that up makes me wonder about the upbringing of a lot of these people and learning how to emotionally regulate, and whether or not they were properly taught how to do that. That makes me kind of want to look into that a little bit and think about that, ponder it.
All right. Well, you ponder it, get the case study going, find out how many of these people had dads, and we'll go from there. I know I'm kind of joking about the dad thing, but find out how many of them fear their mother's wrath. And if they don't fear their mother's wrath, how much they fear their father's wrath. Because if you have a child who fears neither the wrath of your mom nor your dad, you are very likely to be one of these individuals who protest at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Riot at the drop of a hat.
So, on the assembly thing, you said that you think people should be able to just gather anywhere. I am gonna have to disagree with you on that.
Within reason, I will say, like, obviously I hate this situation that was going on in California where people are blocking the highway to protest the immigration issues.
They do that all over the place where these leftist protests. They block the highway. But that's exactly what I was going to say that I don't want. Because then they block emergency vehicles. Like, there's horrible videos of these protesters blocking ambulances. And it's like, come on, man. Like, these people are going to help save someone's lives, and you're blocking the roads so they can't get through. You know, it's ridiculous.
You know, if you want to block the highway, I'm pretty sure you can get a permit. I'm pretty sure they're going to look at you like that's no, don't do that. But you know, you can get permits to do your thing.
Yeah.
And they'll probably put you in a better place, like, you know, in front of Capitol Hill where the laws are actually made. If you block the interstate, no one supports you if you piss everyone off.
No, you lose support for sure. And I think your right to assembly ends as soon as like violence breaks out. As soon as you're throwing things, breaking windows, your right to assembly is over.
There's an argument that if you start yelling at the cops who are there to protect people, that your right to assembly is on very thin ice, because the cops are there to protect. They're not there to antagonize. And if you think they're there to antagonize, your opinion may be the issue.
Yeah.
Like, why you're there may be the issue if you think the cops are there to antagonize you, because the cops are not there to push to silence you. They are there to make sure that you don't go further than necessary. Yep. I don't know how many cops were at all of the Kirk memorials that were being held across the country. I can guarantee you that those cops were not there because they were worried about rioting. But I can guarantee you they were ready if it did.
Yeah. I also think that you shouldn't be able to be masked at public assemblies like that.
Oh. No, I would agree. I know in early 2024, we had a Proud Boys march downtown that were all in masks, and they loaded up in a white van and drove off. I don't think it was a white van. I think it was actually it was a white U-Haul. Yeah. You know, they loaded up into a white U-Haul and drove away. And I know, you know, Proud Boys, you kind of want to know who they are, so you can kind of, I don't want to say dox them, but as a community kind of be like, you guys are definitely on the wrong side of history right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess we can get into the conversation about the people who lost their job for celebrating Kirk, whether we think that was right or not. And I think a business definitely has the right to handle its people as they see fit.
See, a lot of people are drawing the comparison to cancel culture under the left, and I think this is distinctly different than what the left's cancel culture was.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I think because what we're doing is not politically motivated, I would agree.
I would say that what we're doing is politically motivated, but I think that it is distinctly different in the aspect that the left was taking things that you said 10, 15 years ago and getting you canceled for that. Or
well, there's that too. But what I'm meaning is, I don't think it matters if Kirk was Republican or Democrat. If there was political assassination and someone was rooting for it, I think we all should be telling their employers, hey, they're rooting for a political assassination. Sure. It's not. It's political for that manner, versus the left was, as you said, going after people's comments from 10, 15 years ago and bringing them up and being like, I don't like that, we're going to get rid of them. You know, it's against their political ideology, sure, but it's not necessarily like, not everything was political about those statements. There was a lot of statements that were just very inappropriate jokes, maybe not PC jokes at all, that got a lot of comedians in trouble. That had nothing to do with politics. It had everything to do with it just being a raunchy, dirty, bad joke.
Yeah, like then that's kind of what I'm making a point out of, is like, I think we're saying the same thing. We're just kind of talking past each other maybe a little bit. Is that I think that it's justifiable to terminate somebody for the celebration of an assassination or murder. I do not think it was justified to cancel people for stupid jokes or having a political opinion you don't agree with.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree with that. And the extent of freedom of speech, this is where it's going to get kind of weird. I think you absolutely have the right to. Again, I need you to listen to the full statement before you get on me about this.
Okay.
I think you have a full right to make whatever comment you want, so long as it's not threatening another individual. For the people who are threatening Charlie's wife, Erica, you are not obeying the First Amendment. You are threatening somebody, and it needs to be looked into. Yes. For the people who celebrated Charlie Kirk, I despise you, but you have the absolute freedom to do so. You do not have the absolute freedom from us.
Freedom of
consequences. You have the absolute freedom from the government. You do not have the absolute freedom from your peers.
Players. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
So it sucks to say, because I definitely don't condone anyone who celebrated it, but you have the freedom to. You have the freedom to not have the government come against you. You do not have the freedom for me to not tell you you are wrong. You do not have the right for me to not sit by quietly and say, that's okay, that's your thoughts. No. I have the right to tell you, I believe you are absolutely wrong. I have the right to tell you, I think your employer needs to know about this because you have become a very inappropriate face for your company.
Yeah, and like the point that I was going to add to that was not only are they an inappropriate face for the company, but someone with those kind of opinions, if they are in a position or role where they have any kind of power or ability to harm somebody, should not be in that role with opinions like that. If they can hurt you because you have a differing political opinion or disenfranchise you in some way because of your differing political opinion, they should be removed from that position immediately if they are espousing that kind of stuff publicly.
Oh, I mean, yeah. If you can't be bipartisan, if you can't drop the political game while in any scenario, like if you are at work, you need to drop it. If you are at family and friends and you can't drop the politics, if your life has been engrossed so much by politics that it is affecting personal relationships with people that you love or used to love at that point, there's an issue.
Yes.
Because politics were not supposed to take up this much of our lives. Politics were supposed to be, we voted for our officials, and for the most part, we kind of just dropped it until the next election.
To be clear, though, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death isn't political. That's moral. That is like morally.
No, it's absolutely moral. Absolutely moral. Unfortunately, it's become somewhat political because, unfortunately, we're associating certain morals to certain politics at this point.
Yeah. Well, and like that's kind of like, I was gonna say that I will never like stop being friends with you because of your politics. I will stop being friends with you over your morals. Like
absolutely.
I will not tolerate.
But the problem is we're associating both of them at the same time right now, because you think about, we can just talk about the issue of abortion. Is it morally correct to kill a child? Well, is it morally correct to let a pregnant person go through a pregnancy she doesn't want? These are moral questions, but they're more than just moral because they've entered the political sphere at this point. And the thing is that there's no correct answer. It's weird. I think that abortion is definitely wrong, but I think there are certain cases with life of the mother, incest, and grape. We can cut that one.
No, on YouTube you can say it. We can change to grape for a TikTok clip.
Cool. But there are certain situations like those where I think it's considerable based off of who's been affected. I know there's some people who say, no, life is life, period. But for me, who missed out on having a child and who had to watch two other children who were not mine, I can tell you that I actually would say, no, we shouldn't allow it. And I think people should take responsibility for their actions. My
opinion on abortion, I used to be heavily pro-choice. I am more towards I will outright say I'm pro-life now. I'm not even going to play any obfuscation. I'm dead serious pro-life. My position has shifted a little bit since watching some of Charlie Kirk's videos about the pro-life topic. I actually, like, in my video that I put out about the ICE shooting and the whether or not the internet is a net negative or net positive, I briefly had discussed that when I watched his debates, I wasn't really always just watching his debate with the people that he was arguing with, but I was honestly more often than not, I think, debating with him, because I have heard those left perspectives so many times, and I've contended with them so many times that I already know that I don't agree with them. And something that I kind of debated in my mind with him a lot on was on abortion. Because he and many other people that are pro-life are pro-life even in the case of rape. And I am pro-life in that aspect as well, but he was pro-life in the aspect of requiring a mother to carry the child. I, like you, share the opinion that I think exceptions should be made for people that are raped or victims of incest or life of the mother. But I think the precedent for life of the mother, for example, that should be set is that if the baby can be removed and survive outside of the mother without it dying, and the mother can be saved by removing the baby, then that's what should be done. You shouldn't just terminate the baby because the baby...
At that point, it becomes a C-section, does it not?
Yes.
Which is a totally different thing, because I know there's a lot of people who want to argue that C-sections is an abortion because you're removing the child, but what they are forgetting that abortion results in death.
Yes. And anyway, the whole point I was making was that, like, my positions on each of these things is nuanced. I think that with life of the mother, that's the thing that we should consider is, can we remove the baby safely where the mother doesn't die, the baby doesn't die, the baby gets to grow and live a life. And then in the case of rape, I think that, yes, the option for abortion should be open to the mother in that situation. But morally, I think that, and this is difficult because if this was my wife, I would not want her to bring that child into this world. I'm just going to be straight up honest with the audience. I would not. If my wife wanted to, that's her prerogative. But I personally would not want that child brought into the world. But I understand that the crimes of another person should not invalidate the life of another person. So when Charlie Kirk made that argument, morally, I totally understand where that comes from. The incest one is one where I can't agree with that period in a story. Like, that is I think he advocated that if you were a victim of incest, to bring that child into the world. I don't want to represent his views incorrectly, but I watched a clip where he spoke with somebody who had a child and they were a victim of incest. And I just don't think we should. I think plan B immediately. Like, if the baby is developed to a certain point, fine. You can. I'll morally I'll let you side with that baby living, but I think it should be removed from the mother as soon as humanly possible and separated from the mother if the mother wants that. But incest is such a vile, disgusting thing, like rape, but at least it's not inbred when it comes from rape. That's a moral thing that I'm still trying to contend with personally. I don't know where you land on that one, but
I mean, yeah, I kind of said it, like with rape, incest, and life of the mother. I'm okay, depending, letting the person decide for themselves how they want to proceed with that.
Life of the mother, though, like, you would agree that the first step should be to safely remove the baby to live, right?
Oh, I mean, if that's possible, absolutely. But again, like, at a certain point, if life of the mother is, if the problem with the baby causes a problem with the mother at the point at which it could be safely delivered, you're probably already there for the delivery. Well, because the exception would be, because pregnancy has so many ups and downs and things that go wrong with it is insane. But
what if it's like 32 weeks though? Like, and there's something going on with the baby or the mother that's endangering the life of the baby or the mother. Like, the baby would have to survive in NICU, right? Like, it would have to, even down to 22 weeks. You would support taking that baby out though and letting the baby live. You wouldn't side with abortion.
I mean, yeah, the baby would be alive, correct? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to, like, hammer that position out and find out exactly where you were, because I wasn't entirely
Yeah, no,
concrete.
if the baby can survive and there's a complication with the mother, or a complication with the baby and causing a complication for the mother, again, that's not an abortion.
Yeah, no, it's not.
That's not an abortion. Yes, you are forcibly removing the baby from the mom,
So the baby
but
lives.
abortion, the baby lives. An abortion ends in termination.
I think that, but wait, with the life of the mother argument, though, I feel like the default position that we should have is if the mother doesn't want the baby, and because of the risk and everything going on, or not, the mother doesn't want the baby, the mother is going to die because of the baby, or the baby's going to die, but you can remove the baby. I'm just saying, like, that's what we should do instead of killing the baby, because right now the argument from the left is that if the mother's life is threatened, terminate the baby. Like, that is the left's position.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that the default position should be the opposite, where if the baby can be safely removed and live, and the mother can live, that's the default position that we should hold.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess that goes back to a moral standpoint of how you value life, because obviously they value the mother, who's a living person who has connections to the world, versus the baby whose only connection is the umbilical cord.
But is a living person.
Right. But the thing is that that's just not true. Exactly. The fetus is living. It is a baby. Even if it's not born, it is growing human potential.
Yes. And it's disturbing when you watch some of these leftists go up and they argue about they are fine with terminating a baby all the way up to 9 months, all the way up till the mother is in labor about to give birth, and they're fine with spiking that baby in the head as long as it hasn't come out of the birth canal yet. I've even heard some leftists talk about giving birth to the baby and then deciding what to do with the baby after the fact. And like that is evil. That's not just
I think there was a lot of those cases going around being talked about in Minnesota during the last election. They had talked about giving birth to the child and then deciding right there to spike the baby.
It's just disturbing. I understand that it's a minority position on the left, but that's still a position that is so prominent on the left as a minority position that it is talked about nationally, and not just from the right talking about it. These are left-wing voices talking about this nationally, and that is wild and disturbing to me. That is morally repugnant. Like, I'm pretty sure Colorado, like, I'm not even gonna like second guess myself on this. Colorado has 9-month abortions. They legalized it when Trump won. I am positive of that, and that is disgusting. Well, like, I don't know how you in any world you could think a 9-month pregnancy abortion is okay when you could just remove that baby and put it up for adoption. That baby's coming out one way or another. One way or another.
Yeah.
Why kill it? It makes no sense. And like you're talking about, like, I understand, like, it's blending morals with political. We do that already with race-based things, with how we freed slaves, we ended segregation. That was a moral thing that we made political and we put into legislation, and we should value this life and put that into legislation. I don't think it's a complicated issue, and it's being overly nuanced by people who don't want to take responsibility and they want to avoid accountability for their decisions and their life choices.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, it's just we've made morality so political, and we're never going to agree on morals, and that because ultimately we're coming from two different foundations right now.
Well, I think one side is rejecting the reality. Like, their foundation isn't. I don't think this is an entirely moral issue. The science is pretty clear on pregnancy. You know, anything that, like, where the moral stance comes in is conception, right? Like, does life begin at conception? That's where the moral ambiguity kind of starts coming in with the different stances. But beyond that, as soon as the heartbeat starts and all that stuff happens, the science is clear that is a life, that is its own thing. So it's like, at that point, and that's early on in the pregnancy, like, so
yeah. I think it's like 11 days.
Oh, I don't know the exact day. I should, but I just had a baby. But I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact point that a heartbeat starts. But essentially, like personally, I view abortion as it must be strictly necessary, or it must be a plan B immediately after you have sex and suspect pregnancy.
Personally, plan B doesn't always work. I think personally the better choice would just be for some of these people to start taking responsibility for who they're sleeping with. Before you even get into the conversation of sex, like look at who you're with.
Yes.
Don't sleep around. Like it doesn't fulfill you. If you constantly chase the things that fulfill you for the moment, you are going to live the rest of your life constantly empty, because the things that fulfill you momentarily do not add to your life. They just don't.
Hey, I'm gonna shamelessly plug my song I just released. If you guys go on Spotify or all major streaming platforms and find Striking Blue, I released a song today called OnlyFans, and in that song I literally talk about that. I literally say sell your body, sell yourself, tell yourself you're a baddie, you're a queen, you're a baddie, but you wake up feeling so hollow. That's the lyric in the song. And I'm talking exactly about that. And then it goes on to say, they don't love you. They're only fans. They take what they want for $5 a month and leave you all used up. That is exactly I'm talking about exactly what you just referenced. When you should pursue good and you will feel good. Pursue what you want and it's temporary.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people don't seem to understand that as much as we can get out of this life, that's for feel goods. What's important is the long-term goals. You know, if you sit there and say, I'm going to go to the club tonight because I want to get somebody, and stop looking for boyfriends at the clubs. Seriously.
Yes.
If you start looking, hookup culture is bad. If you want a husband, go not to the club. Don't go to the place where people are looking for hookups, where it's one night. You know, slow yourself down. If you find a guy at the club and you think he's cute, talk to him, get his number, go on a couple dates, few dates, figure out who he is,
do something stressful,
and then hook up with him. Yeah.
Seriously, do something stressful. My wife and I, like, this is the exception of the rule, but my wife moved in within 24 hours of me meeting her. Like that, this is the exception. I'm not saying do this. I'm just saying I found out exactly who my wife was really quickly, because you go through a move with somebody, especially 24 hours in, you find out who somebody is really quickly. There's special circumstances that move my wife in within 24 hours. It wasn't just like, oh, we're madly in love, we know it, move in. It was just me being helpful and trying to help my wife because she was in a bad way. And but do not use me as the rule. That is the exception. But do something stressful is all I'm saying.
Well, and that's just it. Like, you got to think about how marriages used to work like a century and a half ago, where it wasn't, you dated for a while and then you got married. It was, a lot more of these marriages were very, very quick. And it was, you found out who your partner was on the fly. Yeah. But there was also a respect to it of like, hey, the wife is going to be the heart of the household. She is going to be the reason why, everything is working. The one who's getting food ready, the one who's keeping everything organized. The man is providing everything for the entire family. And, I know there's some people who are going to be like, oh, we don't need that kind of misogynistic crap in our society. It's not that it's misogynistic. It's that people knew where they stood with each other. And now we're in this kind of situation where everyone thinks they're the same, and we're definitely not. No. There are definitely, my position in life definitely puts me more as a provider. I'm not very good emotionally. I'm not very good with things that are not written out tasks. But, if I find a woman who is very good with maintaining emotions or with taking care of things more sporadically, that's a balance out in my life. And it's not something that you just find on one day, because what I found in other women is that they are far too sporadic and I find out that they're with Mike or Charlie within the same week, and it's like, that's things that you don't want in life.
Nope. Be choosy. Do something stressful.
Exactly.
Take your time. Slow down. The guy who moved in with his wife in 24 hours is telling you to slow down. But I didn't marry her for 6 years, guys. I just want to make it clear. I wasn't racing.
He moved her in 24 hours, and 48 hours later had the ring ready to go.
Definitely. I was all over it. I mean, I knew that we were gonna be serious. Like when I met her, like everything clicked. So I knew like this wasn't gonna be like a fling kind of thing. It's the only reason why I was really willing to do what I did. But
I just have poor choice in women.
Hey, buddy, before my wife, I had terrible choices in women too. But you got to go through a few of the bad ones to know what the good ones look like, I think. So, anyway, slow down. We're going to preach to you. I'm a hypocrite. I will fully admit I'm being hypocritical here, but slow down. And value yourself. A lot of people don't value themselves inside of relationships. You don't want to like put yourself on an altar or anything, but you need to understand that you have value as well. And you need to be respected in that relationship. And you need to respect the other person in the relationship as well. Here we are.
Absolutely. I think we'll definitely
relationship advice.
I think we can definitely do a whole episode on relationship advice that still involves politics, because you'd be amazed at how integrated politics have become in everyday life at this point. Because that's the big thing that people don't seem to understand is if you want something, women, you have all the power in the world, all of it. If you want a man to do a certain thing, stop sleeping with them. Stop giving up your body to anyone who asks for it. Hold yourself back and tell them if you want it, this is what you need to do. You will rule the world again.
Again, they never stopped. Like, so just to get a little side tangent here with feminism, one of the things that I find annoying about modern feminism, like original feminism and second wave feminism, I totally understood. The problem with like third wave feminism, what we're experiencing right now, is that feminism isn't arguing for equality anymore. They're arguing for superiority. And that's what the problem is.
I mean, they can have superiority if they just restricted themselves so much, but they've sat there. They can have it more. Like they can make men who they need to be if they would restrict themselves. Because right now we have a bunch of man boys, grown men who act like boys because party it up, we can get laid whenever we want, but they're not men. They don't become men until much later in life because they're expected to have this party fun life and treat women to a bunch of fun things instead of having women give themselves the decency to say, I don't want a fun guy. I want a guy who's going to provide for me, who's going to treat me like a princess and a queen, not temporarily, but for the long term. And they've lowered their own standards to go have fun. So men have lowered our standards to, I mean, women, if you don't want to be objectified, I'm sorry to say, men change their personas based off of the women they chase. Yes, you are going to be objectified no matter what you do. But if you put yourself as an object of pristine importance, men are going to treat you as if you are a queen.
Yes.
But if you are going to treat yourself as a $1 McDouble at McDonald's,
that's how you be
guess
treated.
what? I got a fucking $1.
Yep.
Let's unwrap you.
God, let's unwrap you, brother. Oh my God, take these McNuggets.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Well, guys, I think that's probably where we should wrap this up with unwrapping you as a McDouble. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching this podcast. I hope you guys took something from it. Again, we are always open for a dialogue, so make sure you guys comment any disagreements or things you want to add to the conversation down below. Hit that subscribe button and that bell notification because it helps the channel a ton. We will catch you guys next time. This is Censored Society signing off. Peace, you guys.